What's good, guys? It's Ilson 4K, and I just got done watching 8-Bit Christmas, and I had to give a quick take on it because I definitely don't have time to do a full review. Long story short, yes, you should absolutely see this movie 1000% if this is your thing. If nostalgia as much as your thing, as you could tell, I love me some Nintendo, even though I don't like Nintendo right now as a company, and this is the best thing that they've done in a long time. But we're going to talk about that in another video, because right now, it's Christmas, and we're going to be polite. So, yes, while this movie, on paper, could have been The Wizard, it was instead the winner, alright? That's the best way to put it. You need to see this because the way Neil Patrick Harris really delivers and continues this whole idea that Stranger Things really helped set in motion by casting someone from the 80s who was a big pop culture icon when they were young in the 80s, such as Neil Patrick Harris, or in Stranger Things' case, Winona Ryder, or the guy who plays the guy who said never say die from the Goonies, and places them as an older character in a modern day version, or in Stranger Things' case, in the timepiece in which they were younger in real life, if that makes any sense. Real paradoxical. But this one, they didn't really go that route and completely rip it off. Another thing that, people want to say, I want to say that they definitely went the route of, but they didn't completely rip off, and that is definitely A Christmas Story. Yes, this movie is clearly inspired by A Christmas Story. Yes, there are plenty of scenes that are completely almost kind of lifted from A Christmas Story, kind of, with their own tweaks. Some things had to be tweaked to make things more tasteful for a modern audience, violence and whatnot. But it was absolutely not 1000% not A Christmas Story ripoff. It was definitely inspired. The narration from Neil Patrick Harris as he talks about himself as a younger kid is absolutely fantastic. Because again, this takes place in the Christmas of '88, and every one of those kids in the movie wants a Nintendo, and they can't get it because there's been a town-wide ban on Nintendos because someone had a violent situation happen where the kid kicked over a television while they were playing games, and it killed the dog. And it's really just a movie that I don't want to say too much about, but you have to go see it because the plot behind it is so fantastic that it is similar to the idea of a Red Ryder BB gun, but it is not at the same time, because instead of one kid wanting something, it's everybody. And that's a really cool thing, because to see the group effort of these kids to go and try and get what they want, which is, of course, the Nintendo. They enter some rallies. They try everything. They sell stuff. They try to negotiate. They barter. They ask their parents for Christmas, which is how it all starts, and the parents say no. It's really just one of those movies that once you get into the mood of it, you can't stop watching it. I did not at one point really want to pause it. I had to, go pee at one point, and I held it in for quite some time. I had to take a few dab rips. I really, spaced those out in this instance. You know what I'm talking about. I absolutely 1000% can't tell you enough how much I loved it, because I'm an 80s kid, and anybody who watched that is probably going to be an 80s or 90s kid. Somebody who grew up playing Nintendo or Super Nintendo, or even maybe someone who didn't grow up with that but now has a parent that does and wants to show them what it was like. Because maybe you've tried to explain it to someone, because, I've shown kids who are like 18, 19-year-olds today what Mortal Kombat used to look like before they were born. And that makes me feel old as shit, but they're always kind of fascinated by it. No one's ever really like, oh man, you old man affair. And that's the thing we get out of this film is, Neil Patrick Harris is telling the story of how he wanted a Nintendo to his daughter in the present day age at his current parents' house, who is, of course, the daughter's grandparents, but his parents, follow me closely, where he grew up and tried to get this Nintendo as they play a Nintendo together. And Neil Patrick Harris goes over the story of just this whole Christmas debacle of trying to just obtain one thing. And it's really amazing because the end of this movie is a point that gets driven home about how you really, really can miss what you want in the long term by kind of sacrificing and not paying attention to what you have now, if that makes sense. You got to really focus on what it is you have now to be happy, because there's always something you want and you can't get, and maybe you can't get it right now, but you will get it, and when you do get it, eventually it feels even better after waiting so long. So anybody who's been trying to build a PC in the last like 3 years knows what I'm talking about, and I know you want to cry, and it's so right, because fuck the scalpers. Speaking of which, there's a goddamn scalper in this movie, and he's a terrible fucking person. Absolutely scummy as hell, even though they try to make him look nice, and that's wrong. We all know scalpers are goddamn wrong. Terrible people. Fuck StockX.com and everything else. Sorry, it's Christmas. I really shouldn't be doing that. Back to the movie review. So, as I mentioned, watching this movie really takes me back to my Christmas, because I wanted a Nintendo in the 80s. I was born in 86, so, you do the math on how old I am. I was born in January of 86, so I completely missed the first, holiday rush of Nintendo really being a hot commodity. But I was around for 87 and 88, of course, but I was 2. I didn't get my Nintendo until I was about 4 years old, and they had to hold off buying it for me because I just straight up... they didn't think I knew how to play it. I couldn't read. I didn't go to school. I was barely in preschool. But they finally caved in and got me a Nintendo. And the cool part was my mom and dad were separated, never married. So I got one at my dad's and one at my mom's. And it was just like the coolest thing ever to me. Like, it was one of the greatest fucking Christmases I could ever recall, explaining to everybody how I knew how to play this game. But everyone had to explain to me. Like, I didn't understand, for example, like the Duck Hunt Mario combo cart. I didn't understand that you could switch between them until someone came over who had played it and said, there's a whole other game in here. And I was like, what the hell do you mean there's a whole other game in here? And it's fucking Mario or something. It was incredible how good Nintendo was to me at the time. I really, really, really got into it right at like peak height. Like, there was that primordial era where like 85 it was a test market, 86 it was pretty popular, 87 it was great. But again, like, I got into it after all, like, the kind of shitty games came out, and I was really spoiled with a very large library of games. Even though I didn't know how to read or play, like, a lot of them, I used to rent them and hope for the best. It was a good time. It was a really good time. And this movie does a really great time of capturing that vibe and that feel of the 80s. The way all the kids look, the period perfect everything about it is executed in 100% fashion. And if you're really a fan of nostalgia movies and got kind of disappointed by the idea of some bigger ideas that didn't turn out so well, such as Pixel, I also haven't seen the new one, the Free Guy movie, and I haven't seen the other one, Extra Guy. I don't know. There's a couple of ones I haven't seen that I want to check out. But if you've been kind of disappointed by some of the video game themed media coming out lately, this is where it's at. And like I said, it's Nintendo. It's all about Nintendo and the classics, and the funniest scenes about it. Like I said, there's a scene. The comedy in this is undeniable. When the kid hears the Nintendo talking to him and he loses track of his sister and she goes running out of the mall. I don't want to spoil it anymore, but really you have to go watch this. And that's my take on it, guys. Again, it's Ilsun 4K. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Catch me every Monday and Thursday night, 9 p.m. Twitch.tv/Ilsun4K. We're doing holiday themed stuff this time. Make sure you join the live chat. Thank you for joining. And again, go see 8-Bit Christmas. Totally recommend it 100%.